Crossing I's, dotting T's. All sorts of little things you have to do when you're starting up a stream. This and that and the other. Get the microphone out. Bash against something. Make a dinging sound. Drink some water. Put your hat on. And we'll get started. There we go. Mostly in the right place with the camera. Let's see if I can get a little out of my way here. It's got a nice long arm, but then it's also bouncy. It takes a minute to get settled. Alright, we're going to try to multitask today and get video taken for this, because this will be a separate video as well as doing it on stream. I got bases, got mechs, got some salamanders that I'm working on. So, lots of stuff to do today. Things to be done. Get things set up here. Get going. I got my festive hat on. We're good to go. I'll show off the mechs here in a second once I get the super satisfying shaking sound of the paint mixer. Probably not as loud since my mic's on the other side, but alright. Still need a shave. Sorry. Super lazy about that. So these hex bases are actually MDF. I should get a clean one to show. So I was talking to a buddy on the Twitter, and she cuts these MDF. She does all sorts of cool projects. Just Geek Mom, if you know. But she cuts stuff out of MDF, and so I sent her the measurements for a hex base and asked her to cut up a bunch of bases. They're just, let's see if I can have an official one. So this is a resin 3D printed one. They're just about the same height. And measurements around the outside are the same. So just perfect for basing mechs. Cheaper, a lot cheaper than printing them out of resin, and a lot cheaper than buying metal bases from a supplier. Because I think I paid, I think I got 100 bases for not very much money at all. So kind of working with her a little bit to get them put up for sale, so that other people can order them. And that way, yeah, it'll be awesome. So So testing those out. So that's what these are. Just have the texture paint, the Vallejo red oxide paste on the top, and then I added some rubble and then painted over with red brown primer, and then dry brushed over the top with Terminatus stone here to give it that grindy, grody ground texture thing. And I think I may end up washing them with some maybe a mid-brown or a soft tone quick shade to get in the recesses, and then maybe even dry brush again. We'll see how I feel about that when we get to that point. When we're actually thinking about gluing mechs to bases, we'll be down the road. So we'll see how that goes. As far as the mechs go, so I was working on the Salamanders last night and got a little tired of doing them. So I did the red on their chainswords and the guns, just to give a non-green or black accent to it, and got tired of doing that, so went back to mechs and picked out a little fire lance of medium mechs, medium light mech, in a white and red scheme. So I've been filming this process, so these will actually go up as a video, separate video, when I'm done. So I'm going to try to take some video today while I'm actually working on the stream, since I'm going to do some detail work and get that up here probably tomorrow morning. Yeah, I gotta love the red oxide paste. That's my favorite. Use this for everything. It's pretty much all my bases get covered in it. Go through it like it's going out of style. So good morning, Dawn. Hey, Steven. Going to be trying a curating paint scheme. Do you have any advice for the red? You do, or something like if you're looking at something like this, let's see. For the base coat, I tend to go a little light because after you wash it, it darkens up. But something like this for scale 75. Let me see if I have a. I think these ones were Antares red. And then I went over the top with them with a 50-50 of strong tone and no, it wasn't 50-50. It was closer to like 75% red, 25% dark to fill in the gaps, and that darkens it up. And then I hit it with hit it with the dry brush over the top to catch the edges. But Antares red is great. I use Antares red for my AdMech as well. Let's see if there's another good red that I would recommend. If you have Citadel, I mean, you can't go wrong with Mephiston red as a base. It's a little bit darker than I would normally go for a base coat but that might actually work well for a Kurita Lance, because their red tends to be a little bit darker anyway. So if you've got some Mephiston red sitting around, that would probably work well. Yeah, so doing a lot of reds in this house because just having so much AdMech laying around, you get used to using red. But that 50-50 mix, not 50 yet, 75-25 mix of the red wash and the dark tone does a really good job of filling in the recesses while still keeping the red, and so you're not darkening it down too much. If I had done just the 75%, if I had done just a red wash, it wouldn't have been dark enough. You wouldn't get the detail like you get. This might be a little heavier than I would have preferred, but let's see here. Centurion here was just about exactly what I was looking for creating some shadows and getting in the nooks and crannies. Focus. So did base coat in red. Thank you, Don. Base coat in red. Did the wash, did the dry brush on all the top, and then came back and used a white ink on the legs to do those colors, and then over the top did a where is it? Apothecary white over the top, which admittedly doesn't keep the white. It makes it much more like a light gray, but that's good for Battlemechs because you're unlikely to keep a nice clean white paint job on the feet of your mechs for very long. So they look gritty, like they've been out in the field for a while and covered in dust. So it's working, I think. So a faction on this, probably just going to go with calling it a mercenary faction. I just did some curator mechs, so probably shouldn't do another one. Which color, Stephen? The scale color ones? Yeah, I heard there were some issues with getting scale 75 in Europe, but I'm not sure. Did I undercoat them or just go there? They had a went with a red. There's a Vallejo red-brown primer that I did, and that's the only thing below the red base coat. Yeah, scale 75 I'm a big fan of them, just because they're so flat. I don't like the glossy stuff, at least for most of those. Alright, so let's get some paint on mechs. So I'd like to pick out their guns with metallics. I think kind of as I've explained before, and you probably weren't here, so I'll explain it again. For the Battlemechs, pulling out the guns, since they are the reason why the mech exists, right, is these gun platforms. Pulling them out from the rest of the model so that they can be a feature. So you're actually, your eye is drawn to them a little bit instead of blending in with the rest of the mech. So we got the spider here with his arm, weapons, looking all sleek. Try not to get it in the actual barrel because the wash I did actually did the work there. I made the barrel a nice dark color. Do work, don't undo work just to have to redo it later. Alright, and then I'm gonna come back in and do a brighter, do a different color of red to accent certain points, like the fins on this and the armor on the arm here for the Centurion, just to make it accent as well at some point. Is it US based? I'm not sure. Now I want to know. I'm gonna look it up. But I think their paints are very matte and popular with professional painters, and I certainly wouldn't call myself a professional, but I do like them for their flat nature here. Let's see. They are in. See, store information, and it's in Madrid. So we're looking at Europe here. interesting. Yeah, I thought they were European. Yeah, that red-brown primer, let me grab it. I'll show it to you real quick. That Vallejo primer can be brushed on. So I just buy a big bottle. And it lasts for a while. It's good for reds. That way you don't have to build up from black or a white. So if you do a white base coat and then try to do red over the top, it comes out looking pink. So brown is really good for base coating for red. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that recently. Yeah, and that can be brushed on and then watered down for airbrushes. Alright, so that spider's good for the metallics, I think. Or at least for the... I might come back in with a different metallic. Look at the salamanders here just hanging out. Work on us. No. Busy doing Battlemechs, sorry. I think this variant of the Hunchback is a laser of some sort. I don't remember. I don't know my Inner Sphere Battlemechs as well as I know my Clan Battlemechs, so. But it looks like it's not the usual AC-20 on this Hunchback. So this might be the laser version. Like a PPC or something. I'd have to look it up. Maybe a Battlemech expert will wander in. Look at the little arm lasers. Change my painting water. What do you got going on today, folks? It's the usual grind. You know, Don's got that cool video that went up on... Don did an awesome video on a Necron character using non-metallic metal. That was pretty awesome. He does some great work, and I'm jealous of your work area, Don, being able to like have windows and look out and see the real world. It's the thing I'm lacking from my hobby cave down here is it's in the basement surrounded by concrete, so I'm basically in a bunker. Could be raining sulfur and ash outside and I wouldn't know. Which might be a blessing in disguise. We should get some snow today, maybe. Kids are so excited for like snow and Christmas. It's bouncing all over the place. We'll see. Getting closer. Not the best model. You do what you can with what you have, right? I want to see you do some Battlemechs, Don. That'd be pretty cool. Get you into Battletech here. I got this like, I almost pull this out. This is an interesting rounded feature. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and make it. I'm not brave enough for non-metallic metal. Maybe someday. I'll find some Stormcast model. I think I've got one somewhere that was part of a unit that got half built somewhere along the line by students, and I have the remnants, and then I won't feel bad about ruining it. Cool. I don't want to do too much on this because I like the transition from the red to white, so I don't want to add too many bare steel parts besides the weapons. What witchcraft is this? Oh, it's not poisoning. That's not the right word. It's enlightening. That's a much better word. Oh, they're neat. It's a very passionate community too. So fans of Battletech are very, very passionate about it. In a good way, usually. I've learned that after joining over the years, and definitely reinforced when I joined a couple of Battletech discords, and people seemingly hang out there most of the day, talking about the lore and having discussions and even a few arguments here and there. This faction and that, and history. It's got just so much going on. I love this design because it has a little door. A little door on it that would slide, and then it looks like it would have to rotate to cover all of the. So slide over and rotate at the same time to close up over the missile tubes. Kind of neat design. Looks better in trim. It's better in photos. So I guess it's what you're going for, right? Pretty in a photograph versus utility on the tabletop, maybe? I don't know if that's the right word. Doing like an online painting competition, I guess. That would help to go that way. Not a problem for me. Alright, coming along. So this little armor panel here, which is almost like a shield, which is cool because the mech is a Centurion, and you would expect a Centurion to be carrying a shield. That's going to get kind of a pull-out color. I haven't decided what color yet, but something that will pull it out from the fray. Watched an awesome video this morning with my son of a walkthrough, a brand new video walkthrough from Pompeii and some of the new stuff they've literally uncovered. Really cool. One of those places that I definitely want to see at some point during my life in person. Got a friend who went over just at the very beginning of the pandemic with her daughter, and the place was deserted. And from what I know about Pompeii, that the site is usually just continually super deluged with tourists, but they just hit it at just the right time before everything shut down, but in Italy, and got to see the town pretty much on their own. The place was pretty empty. Yeah, Catalyst is based in the U.S. Yeah. Battletech used to be under a company called FASA, and then it was the IP has been purchased and argued over. Some of the things have been argued over the years. Alright, anything else that needs to be silver on here? Alright, I think we're good on that. Going very minimalist on the silver because I want to keep the focus on the red and the white transition. That's the money maker on these. Yeah, dig the Centurion. I'm definitely gonna print more of these. Now that I have the focus. Now that I have the file for it, I can make more. Once I get more resin, I kind of ran out of resin and my monthly allotment of resin, so I'm gonna hopefully get some more here in the next few days. Clearly, the package clearly says from Santa, right? So I didn't buy it for myself. Santa delivered it. Good old Santa covers for all sorts of financial misdeeds. Box clearly says from Santa. Yeah, these are some of my favorite Innister mechs. Love the Bushwhacker, love the Centurion. If you played MechWarrior Online, you're gonna hate the Spider. So that's kind of hard to. It's hard to let that go here. You just go over there. Spiders were very well popular for some people to use, but unpopular for people to fight because their netcode was not super strong. So hitting these little guys with your weapons was tough because you're shooting in a place where that mech is no longer there. So you fire at it, and just does not die. And so it becomes a competition for guessing where it might be and leading your target enough to actually hit it with your weapons. So you have a little 20-ton mech that does a lot more damage than it should, and lives a lot longer than it should, because it just isn't where you're shooting. Hopefully they fix that. I haven't played MechWarrior Online in quite a few years, but it's a little frustrating. Bushwhacker, on the other hand, it's just a solid mech all around. Good mix of weapons, though maybe some complaints that it has too much of a mix and doesn't kind of devote itself to one thing, but so many Innister mechs aren't devoted to one thing anyway. So you have a mix of long and medium range and short range stuff. People want to specialize their mech and just make it a missile boat or a long range fighter or a short range brawler. So they kind of min-max, and that's not generally how Innister mechs were designed. Because what works on the tabletop game doesn't exactly translate to what you would want in the real world, where you have a battle mech that you'd want to be multifunctional to do more than one thing. Alright. Coming along. Give me a second to talk. Well, it's mostly just jibber jabber. And I'm probably not painting as well as I could be if I were focusing better. Let's probably just a skill like anything else. I'm going to grab some video because this will eventually, these mechs will actually go into a video here in a second. So I'm going to try to multitask and capture a little video because I've done this whole process recorded so far. So we're going to do two things at once here. Well, three things at once, because then I'm going to talk while I do it. Yeah. How about that for multitasking? Do three things at once. Of course, now it's out of frame and blurry, so not the best video apparently. I did see some really cool research. I used to talk with kids about this all the time because kids pretend that, or at least they convince themselves that they're really good multitaskers, except there's not really a thing. It's not really a thing to multitask. Your brain can really only do one thing at a time. And if you're trying to do two things at a time, you're switching back and forth, and it's called switch tasking. So when you're talking on the phone and driving at the same time, your brain is actually flipping back and forth, trying to do one thing for a short amount of time. So I'm trying to line this up on the camera. Your brain's going back and forth as fast as it can, which actually means, based upon their research, that you actually do neither one as well as you could if you just focused on one. So students would be like have their phone out and want to be on their phone in class, and always make them put it away. Just go, oh, well, I can multitask. No, you can't. You're terrible at it. In fact, people who think they're the best multitaskers, according to the research, are actually the worst at it, because they're so practiced in switching back and forth, and your brain just really can't focus on one thing and do that one thing well. It's interesting research from, I think it was Stanford that was running that study. Oof, this brush is on its last legs. Good stuff for your families. Yeah, in general, I'm not a big fan of min-maxing. It's much more about the kind of the fun of it and not winning, I guess, because I'm not a competitive tabletop gamer, but it's much more about the fun of it and fitting the theme and fitting the story. I'd much rather have a mech that makes logical sense for the world in which it exists rather than anything else. If you want to make an Omni mech and give it nothing but LRMs, and that's fine. In fact, there are mechs out there like that. But, yeah. Alright, so I think that's good for silver for the lead belcher. Don't want to overdo it. Alright, how about some accent color on the shoulders? Alright, so I may actually break out in the fist in red. Or do we need to go... shoot, where is that color? We could go corn red. That might actually be a good color too for Steven, for your Kurita mechs. If you want to go really dark with it, you could go corn, and then when you wash over the top of that, that would be a really deep red. So if you want to go darker color, that would work. So we're going to do some, let's see here. Let's do corn. Keep forgetting I have a mixer, so I can shake some stuff by hand. corn here. Is it heretical to put corn red on your Blood Angels like I've done in the past? What is going on? Alright, workers here at about 10:30, which is actually good because that should be just about the time where I'm finishing up. Awesome. Alright, let's do Centurion's shield here, and I'm going to capture it on video since it's one more thing. Let's see if we can successfully do the two things at once. Or three things at once. They wore that color. Oh, we're gonna make some Blood Angels fans angry here. Oh, I immediately feel good about this decision. I'm gonna get close to the edge, but leave the dry brushing edge, hopefully. So I have to come back in and re-dry brush or re-edge it. So I'm just going to make the armor panel a nice deep red. And leave the rest. Cheat a little bit and not have to do edge work. Save us a step. You can get to see how the sausage is made with my phone here recording. That's the high quality video recording equipment that I have currently. The cell phone camera. Admittedly a good cell phone camera, but still a cell phone camera. Does pretty good. Does a pretty good job. Alright, I'm going to leave that as is. I like that. That'll work. So as you see him, that's going to jump out. I might even do the fin on the top of his head here. How's it going, RB? Let's do the shoulder fin. Hopefully grabbing some usable video here. I can't see. Triple tasking. Poor Blood Angels. That's one of my favorite 40K books. The Devastation of Baal is one of my favorite Warhammer 40K books. Good old Dante. Alright, I think we're good there for video. I need to run my battery down. Hopefully a few seconds of that was usable. Rainy day, getting your game together. That's good. It's raining here. It's supposed to turn into snow at some point. We'll see. I'm getting pretty close to the day when we'll get snow and it'll just stay for the next month on the ground. Tends to be that way up here. It's fine by me. Much better than where we came from on the other part of the state where it just rains all the time and everything feels like it's just moldy. Because it just gets wet and then it just stays wet all the time. I'm so done with basement water issues. Don't have that out here. Did have to put in a radon system. That was a little bit of money, but the soil out here is super sandy, so we had to do a radon test, and that came back a little elevated, so they had to put in a system, and then it's fine now. So, kind of interesting though, they dig down, put a pipe that runs underneath, dig through the foundation into the ground, put a pipe down there, and creates basically a vacuum that sucks the radon through the pipe up to the top of your house and out your roof, rather than it just sitting underneath your floors and then percolating up. Pretty neat. Alright, Centurion, you look 10 types of awesome, so we're going to go ahead and do some other accent work on the others. We'll give you a rest. Yeah, workers were in here yesterday, got some painting done, repainted the upstairs living room wall that the electricians drilled through, which was actually kind of a scary moment. I had just been leaning on that wall a few minutes before, and my son and I were playing Minecraft, and suddenly this big old drill drills through the wall at an angle. They were trying to get the drill down because they were running electrical lines and Cat 6 through the walls, but they needed to drill a hole. Well, the drill didn't go down steep enough. It went right through the wall, and if I had been leaning on that exact spot, still, that drill would have gone right through my back, which would have been quite painful. Probably would have caused some damage. Had to patch the wall, and then finally got around to repainting it. Hopefully painting done this week. Hopefully doors on the cabinets this week. And the end is near. Nearer than farther, hopefully. What else do we need tags in here? Let's do that. And we'll have it downstairs. Real downstairs. Yeah, I'm super happy that drill didn't go through my back. That would have been pretty bad. Alright, what do we need to do on you? Let's boost the profile of your laser. RB, do you know the version of the Hunchback that I'm working on that has the laser? Because I know this isn't this can't be the AC-20 version. The gun barrel is tiny. I think it's a PPC. You might know, since you're more up on the inner sphere stuff than I am. bunch of different versions of the Hunchback. P or something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a PPC. Oh, I missed a laser with the lead belcher. I'll have to come back. Alright, spider. Of course, the dirty little secret with this spider is like printing him 5% bigger. You'll notice the size difference. No, not really. He just looked super fragile in the slicer program. So I figured, what would 5% do if I made him a little bigger? No one will notice. Unless you call it out on a stream. Oops. All right. Looking good. Don't want to overdo it with the corn red because, again, anything that pulls back from the red-white transition is something I don't want. Yeah, I don't remember the variant. I'd have to look it up on Sarna. Got to the point with my 3D printing where I was just printing one of everything that I could find. So by the time it makes it from file to slicer to actual print job, I've forgotten which ones or which. That corn red can go there. All right. So I got these, showing these off earlier, RB, but bases got cut up in MDF, so they're cheaper. Yeah, it might be the 6P. That does sound familiar. But these cut out of MDF and shipped to me from someone I know on the Twitters, and that'll be a nice, cheaper way to do bases rather than printing them in resin, which costs more. Because I think I got 100 of these. 100 Battlemechs for less than $10 with shipping. So keep going. I'm kind of working with her a little bit to get them designed. We thought we would try doing a two-step, so you glue them together and then you have space underneath for a magnet. But the MDF is so thick that it's almost double a regular base height. So people who are into competitive Battletech might not like the thickness. She'll eventually put these up on her store to sell. So she's gonna try to get a thinner MDF that's kind of hard to get right now, and then get them cut out and hopefully sell them as a pack so you can do the magnets underneath. For now, they're just gonna be flat. That's okay. That's what these are. So you can see the MDF on the bottom. And because they're cut with a laser, they've got that nice burnt wood smell. It's actually quite strong. If you leave the bag open, it kind of makes the room smell like cooked MDF, which is actually not bad. Almost like a campfire in here. Alright. I do think I want to shade that while I can, and that way it can dry for later. Let's do that. Do a mid-brown. These guys chill for a minute and do their bases. Get their bases washed so they'll dry in time for later. I don't have a hair dryer, so I'm waiting for the air to do the work. Which one of these is the least disgusting? Okay, that one. That would be a good idea. Yeah, if you were just going to go with one layer, being able to drill into the middle of one for a magnet would work. But I would imagine that would probably drastically increase the amount of time it takes for her to make these, because really she's just planning with one design cut out of the big sheet, and she doesn't have to do anything once they're cut out. So as far as labor goes, if she does end up selling these on Etsy, it'll be pretty low effort for her, because you're just print a sheet and punch them out. So yeah, that'd be a good idea if you had a bunch of these and I wanted to put magnets on them. I haven't magnetized any mechs, so it's not something that I'm in dire need of accomplishing at the moment. But that is a good idea. Alright, I'm going to use the crappiest brush I have. The Contemporary Crafts flat brush. It'll probably cost 3 cents because the bristles are basically garbage, but good for washing. So get some brown in here to get into the nooks and crannies. Yeah, it'll look pretty good once it's dry. With a wash, you can always be a little messy with it because you want it to pool in the recessed areas. The entire point. Saw a poll this morning like, do you use washes in your painting? And it was something like 90% yes on it. Like, they're just so useful for so many things. And cover up so many painting sins. I think she's using a laser cutter, which, yeah, she's using a laser cutter because of the burnt edges. It's Jess, what's her name? Jess the Geek or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Has an Etsy store and sells a bunch of this laser cut stuff. Which is cool. I might put a gloss coat on this. That might be... They look kind of neat glossy. It won't dry glossy from the wash, but I could come in afterwards and do a gloss coat over the top. They look kind of neat glossy. You can always pivot. Pivot, pivot. So many times you get to a certain point in a project and like, oh, well, this idea is 1,000 times better, so I'm just going to do this instead. Imagine if you've got the tool, you can almost do it with a little handheld tool, handheld rotary tool. If you set up a little jig that would make sure you didn't go too deep, you could just kind of punch them out. But you have to... I could do that. Because I could 3D print a jig that would hold it just above, that would go halfway through the top. I'll have to think about that. I have to bust out the AutoCAD and see if I can do it. Make a router for my, make a jig for my little handheld tool. That would be cool. Alright, so that's the wash on the bases. It's already drying on this one. But let's see what else we can do here. Alright, we can do the cockpits. That would be the next big thing. Bust out the white. You're the master of the tools there. Drill press, flat bottom, Forstner bit, accurate and consistent. Yeah, I wish I had more of those types of tools. I don't have a whole lot of woodworking tools, and my toolbox is a mess. You know, I've needed a new toolbox for at least a decade, and just never got around to it. So I have this kind of, not a Craftsman box, but what is it? I think it's a Husky box, but it's completely just jammed full of tools, and there's no organizational method. It's just take a tool out and toss it back in. It's kind of an embarrassment. I'm going to have to hand in my man card. Alright, so I keep forgetting I have the auto mixer. I have to train myself. Alright, the secret to my success here, the Proactrol Bold Titanium White. Very nice white. Can you come out? No, let's try it in an actually good spot. So for cockpits, starting with the white and then doing a wash over the top, so it'll be a nice bright view. And then we got to use the maximum effort brush. Where's the maximum effort brush? Aha! Insane detail. Army Painter Wargamer Insane Detail Brush. You actually need to paint something tiny, like a cockpit. Bold move trying to do this on camera. As we hold our breaths. We can do it. Probably can't hear me whispering. Oh, I hit the edge. I hit the edge. I failed. Dishonor to my clan. I need to fix that, or else it's going to bug me. Let's use some Mephisto Red to fix that. You failed. Why do you fail? Do you have yourself a wood shop set up that's like its own thing at your place? That's what I would like, ideally. When we have room in our backyard, maybe someday I get a shop built. Actually do some, maybe take a class in some woodworking. That would be cool. Working on it. Working on it, working on it. Bushwhacker's nice because it's got a huge cockpit. Well, nice to paint, probably not as nice to pilot as you're absorbing fire. Close-up view of PPC shots as they fly by your screen. Nothing like a little artificial lightning to wake you up in the morning. Tools, working on carts and then brains. Awesome. That's cool. You're getting it going. Hopefully with an awesome new job here soon to help pay for it. Probably shouldn't have gone all the way down, but that's alright. We'll go with the big cockpit. I think it went a little bit bigger than it should have been, but that's alright. Close enough for government work. The cool thing about the Proactrol titanium white is it basically is one coat coverage. Whereas so many other whites I've tried, you can do layer after layer after layer, and you're never going to get rid of the base coat under showing through. How's that for try hard? Perfect. Cockpits that are split are annoying. Looking at you, Mad Cat. Looking at you, Timberwolf. Rakshasa. So somebody did an actual whole video talking about the Rakshasa and why it has such a weird reputation where people either love it or they hate it. Inner sphere version of the Timberwolf. Oh, spider. Your cockpit's gonna suck because it's so tiny. Sorry. Hands are not steady enough for tiny cockpit work. So you're getting what I can do. That is done. I can go over the top with the blue wash, the bright blue Citadel contrast paint, and it will make it nice and blue. And then we can do the special fancy glimmer effect over the top of it. So Talisar blue, great, nice bright, almost like a bright blue ink. Shake it up here. all shook up. Nice bright blue. We'll go over the top of this white, and it's going to pop. Pop. One of the most useful things I've 3D printed was the paint top holder here. Will holds the paint pots open for the Citadel paints, because they're notorious for not wanting to stay open, and also keeps you from knocking it over. That's good too. All right, so I'm not going to use a super fancy brush because I don't use. I'm not supposed to use contrast with your nice brushes, because it wicks up the liquidy. It wicks up the brush. All right, another hold your breath moment as I try to sneak in here with the blue and not hit the edges. So the idea is to get just enough blue on there that it catches the edges and makes the edges nice and dark, so you get the illusion of depth, and like it would be actual glass, not just painted blue. Be more obvious on the Bushwhacker because of the larger cockpit. See it in action here. Probably a larger than typical cockpit. Because it's so big, I'm going to put a little bit extra, and it's going to pool in the middle and pull away from the edges and create a little bit of depth. So that's kind of like backwards from what you might normally do, where you paint something and then come back in later and do the edges in a lighter color. In this case, using contrast, get the contrast paint to pool in the middle of an area, and that leaves the edges looking brighter. The camera is washing this out a little bit, but it looks pretty good in person, and will look better in the final photographs. Video. Oh, I should probably record for said video. You know, kind of hard to post a video if you don't take any video. It's just a black screen and recording nothing. All right. We'll record the Hunchback. Again, triple tasking here, talking and recording video and streaming at the same time. Not too shabby. So if I have any extra blue, I'd try to pull it to the middle of the screen so that it will dry in the middle rather than on the edge. Here we have the ridiculous spider cockpit, which will be silly. Not like you need to see out of the spider cockpit anyway. You're just running as fast as you can. Everything's a streak anyway. got their base on the cockpit. That'll have to dry. Bases are starting to dry. You can see much darker. Wash stayed in some of the nooks and crannies, which gave helped the peaks look even more even higher. Once those are dry, we'll get these guys busted off and put on them. I think that's what we'll end the day with getting the mechs on there. Hopefully this will dry quick. Can't glue them on their bases until their bases are dry. All right, let's do this. Actually, while they're doing that, we can wash the metal bits. Yeah, one laser. Where was that laser on one of them that didn't get done? Oh, it's the Hunchback. Poor Hunchback. Didn't get his lasers done. Whew. Big spike in concurrent viewers, and then it dropped to 0, and then it's back to 1. I have no idea what's going on. YouTube is a little confusing sometimes about what's actually going on. There could be somebody watching, but who knows? Who knows? That one last. Shenanigans. Our shenanigans are fun. Their shenanigans are tragic and sad. That's how that goes. It's really rough as a father to have, I don't know, the tween son who's not quite old enough, but you know his humor is going to be like spot on with certain movies. Like, when my son's old enough to watch Super Troopers, he is going to love that movie, but he's not quite there yet. Maybe in a couple of years he'll be ready for that. Some of the humor in there that's a little racy, but he will definitely think that movie is hilarious. All right, what was I doing? I was going to wash. All right. And we are going to use some Agrax Earthshade. Where are you? Martian texture. No, that is not what I'm looking for. There we go. Agrax Earthshade. Good for weathering steel. Of course, the most fun of the day now is putting the paint on the paint mixer. So that's worth every penny just for the cheap thrill of putting the paint on there and feeling it bubble and shake and shudder and blah blah blah. Alright, so a little Agrax Earthshade to age the metal a little bit, make it a little bit less striking to the eye. Showing it's still there, it's just not as big. It's the little things, yeah. Don't have a yacht and not headed out to Martha's Vineyard for the weekend, but I can put the paint jar on the paint shaker and enjoy that. Yeah. There's no yacht. There's no house on Martha's Vineyard, sorry. Or in this side of the country, Medina or Clyde Hill. We did briefly own a house when I was growing up in Clyde Hill, which is, if you're not an expert on Washington State, Clyde Hill is right next to Medina, and Medina is where Bill Gates lives and his gigantic house. And it's probably one of the most expensive places in the state to live. But just because you're in the town doesn't mean your house is super nice. And our house was kind of a fixer-upper, and we got it kind of cheap and lived there for a while, mainly so that we could go to nice schools. So kind of a claim to fame that I lived kind of near Bill Gates at some point, though a couple of miles away. And his part of town was a lot nicer than ours. Ended up selling, moving somewhere else, and the rest is history. Stayed through high school and then moved out because it was way too expensive to live there. We were not a rich family, so... Trying to capture this on video here, so that's why I'm holding it kind of wonky off to the side. Capturing it on the camera, cell phone camera video. There we go. That's enough. That's enough. Alright, last one. And the bases are pretty much dry here, so we think we can get them on the base. And then we'll be able to call these guys mostly done. There'll be a couple of accent things. I'm going to do a little symbol on them to represent their little mercenary company. And then they'll be done. Nice, quick 3.5 hour maybe mech paint job. Not too bad for tabletop ready. If you needed to do these for a match you have next week, it wouldn't take too long to do it like this, where you paint it 2 colors. Helps if you have an airbrush, of course, to do the transition, but that's the only kind of tricky part. Not too shabby. Alright, wash is done. Now we can glue them to bases. How does that sound? Let's do it. Speaking of little things, the point at which you cut the support off and glue it to the stand is a nice moment. Like mechs. Almost dry. Come on. You can do it. Alright. I was going to show this off. So failed resin print from the gigantic Robot Legion guy. I'm going to paint up as a shawl or a piece of fabric. What happened there? To fix that. That'll go on his little flag. I don't know if it's too big or not, but I'll give it a try. See if I can't kit bash something. Make the sergeant look fancy. Fancy schmancy. Alright, delayed long enough. Let's glue. Need a new bottle of glue here soon. Getting a little scummy on top. The downside of buying the big bottle of glue. You gotta keep that tip clean, or else you end up with a lot of wasted glue. Alright, let's do the Bushwhacker first. Should I record the satisfying moment? Let's record the satisfying moment. To spray the quick set because super glue just doesn't work out here unless it's quick set. So we're going to put it right there. It should just take a few seconds and you have yourself a Battlemech on a base. Yeehaw. Looking good. Oh, it's so nice when you can stand them up for the first time. Looking good. Like your kid walking for the first time. Though probably not as important as that, but you get the idea. We're gonna do this is the exciting part. You get to see the mechs on their bases. No, doesn't really help. Need a camera that's a front-on camera. Right. Centurion, you're up next. I think I want to do that one for the Centurion. He has seen Airplane. The Naked Gun series is a little risque still. Well, maybe next year on that one. But we've seen quite a few of the 80s movies already. Going through the repertoire. It's the same thing I kind of did with my dad growing up. I watched all the old westerns with my dad when I was little, and so now my son and I are watching the 80s and 90s movies that I grew up watching. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. Some of these movies I haven't seen for 20 years, and some of them really haven't aged very well. One that springs to mind is Meatballs, which probably wasn't appropriate, really, in retrospect, to watch. just because the Bill Murray character is a little aggressive with the women. Probably end up in court if you tried to do that kind of stuff today. But you take the good with the bad, I suppose, in some of these older movies. The one we haven't done yet is Trading Places. I think we're just about ready for that one. It has a couple of risque scenes in it, but I think he's okay. Alright, I think we're pretty much done. I'm going to do a little marking for their group. What color was I going to do that in? I was going to do it in... What was I going to do? Oh, I was going to do a white circle and then have a mark in the middle. The Naked Gun movies are kind of... There's a lot of sexual stuff in those that's he's not quite ready yet for. Not quite there. Need a brush to do a circle. Find a brush that does a nice circle. That would be good. Try not to screw up a paint job by over trying. Alright, let's do it up here. We're going to go straight down on it and hopefully just make a nice circle. Nice. Now we're cooking with kerosene. How's that for a perfect circle? Almost like I planned that. Almost like I planned it. Let's do the circle on this side here. Alright, I just have to replicate it 3 more times. Oh, not as good a circle that time. I'm going to mess it up by trying to fix it too much. I nail it. Yeah, when you can get it to round out to a nice $100 or whatever it is for gas these days. Ridiculous price. I'm going to catch this one on video to prove that I did it on the spider. Oh, another good circle. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself, and I do. Alright. Just wash the butt end of my brush for no reason. Alright, there's that. Alright, I think there's just kind of little stuff on that done. I will put something in that white circle eventually once that paint is dry. I think we're pretty much done. I need to do the black around the edge of the base. That's kind of a grunt work, non-stream thing to do though. New voicemail. Oh, that's usually a good sign. Just text me. Don't send me a voicemail. It's never a good sign. It's usually somebody who doesn't understand texting and only people I know don't understand texting aren't going to be sending me good news. So it's usually a bad thing. Dig in the MDF bases. I think they're better than trying to print them. Just cost-wise and time-wise, because when printing a set of 16 bases in resin, so it's the time and the resin cost and the fact that you have to spend 10 minutes pulling them off the plate and cleaning them up. Much easier to just spend $10 on 100 MDF bases and call it good. Or whatever the amount of money it is, because I would certainly be happy with having to pay a little bit more. It's the furnace kicking on, so it must be getting colder out. Getting the base done. Starting to look like a Battlemech. The super exciting portion of the stream where he paints bases, paints the edges of bases. We'll finish this up and then call it good, because workers will be here soon and I got other chores I need to get done today, real world things. You know, responsibilities, real world stuff. There's the millennials would say adulting. Oh, thank God I'm not a millennial. It's actually easier than painting a round base. The edges on the round base are a little bit trickier than a nice flat six-sided figure. Feels faster. Trying to keep that continual curve on the edge, I think, is the difference. And this is just 6 flat sides. It's a lot easier. Of course, editing all that video that I take is going to take a few hours too. Alright, I think we're going to call it good on these. I'll do the little detail work on the sigil later once the white is fully dry. So I will call this a day. We've got about an hour and a half. It's pretty typical for these streams before I need to go up and use the facilities and be an adult. So thank you coming out. Anyone who's still here, Steven, RB, I appreciate it as always. Be awesome. Have a good day and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow and the next.